Last week when I was planning this event that we're going to talk about, I looked at the weather forecast, and it indicated there was one perfect day this week. Yeah. Tuesday.
And look at it.
So much for that.
It's crazy. Well, listen, it's slippery out there, so people should take it easy. Of course, it helps the fact that schools are all closed this week other than colleges, but we do have delays on the college side. Chief Brooks has an amazing story. It's about a remembrance ceremony you're doing today for a former slave and Utica firefighter. I mean, that grabs people's attention right there.
Yeah, it definitely grabbed my attention. I had heard this name, Samuel Dove, you know, as a historic Utican. Actually, Councilman Mark Williams mentioned his name a while back. And just recently, I became aware that he was a Utica firefighter. And a friend of mine that kind of frequents the Historical Society started talking about him, and she researched him for me. And you know, as you said, it's just an incredible story about an individual that was born in bondage and his journey that eventually brought him to Utica. And he was a member of the Utica Fire Department.
And Kristine did a lot of some of her research over the weekend, and you found some really incredible things written about this guy here.
They were, and it was interesting too, because some of the things that were written, I think today we would take great offense to, that they were meant as, you know, praise at the time when his wife died.
Well, they described him as having the heart of a white man, which today we would look upon that as being very negative. But you know, that's how people spoke at the time.
Well, I had a column in the paper Sunday, and most of the column was his account of his life. It wasn't mine, and that even had to be edited. I had mixed emotions about editing it. You know, it kind of takes away that historical perspective and that striking that nerve that maybe should be struck. But
what was life like for him? I mean, he was a firefighter. That had to be. But up here, you know, we always look the heart-wrenching part was his life before he came here, being torn from his family, and not that he seemed like, you know, his writing, his account, he just came across that he was a very humble person, but you know, he had been whipped and he had been sold a couple times, and you know, you couldn't help but you know feel that wow, this is a real person. This is the real thing, even after all these years. When does this date back to?
Well, he died in 1904. I've tried to determine when he was born, and even on his headstone there's no birth date. You know, it's just that he died in 1904. I went up there and looked at it, and then it became real, you know, that he was there.
So do you, what will be done today?
Well, as I said, came across as being a humble individual, but I have to say also that he supposedly had one of the most well-attended funerals in the city, with the most prominent people there. He was very, very highly regarded. This first one will probably be a simple ceremony. Myself and Councilman Bill Phillips organized this late on, and you know, we'll probably have a reflection, say a prayer, lay a wreath at his grave, and you know, say some words, and we'll see how it goes. This may end up
something annual.
I'd like to think it would be an annual thing. I think it's you know, a significant issue for the Utica Fire Department, but more so for the city of Utica. Having
I was going to ask that.
Like
so, what? Obviously, this said a lot about this man. The fact that his funeral was so well attended, that he was respected, he was a member of the Utica Fire Department. But it also says a lot about us as a society going way back. It says a lot about Utica.
Yeah. Well, his owner moved to Utica. He moved north because he wanted his children to have a better education. than they could get in the South, and he brought him with him, and then he was eventually freed while he was here. And,
so he was freed when in Utica. Wow.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And what do you...
and I got to say, I'm not much of a historian.
Yeah.
You know, so there's people I'm sure that could better speak to this than me.
Are there any descendants that are known?
You know, some of it's hearsay, but I understand he does have a prominent descendant, and I even followed through on it, that did some innovations, technology that probably
Kristine
are way
seems
above.
To be, she seems to have dug in and found a little something.
So one of his grandsons became a very prominent scientific researcher.
Yeah.
And he, along with many other people at the time, worked at Rome Lab. Descendants of slaves works at Rome Lab because the Air Force hired them, and he helped create the technology, or he did create the technology that is now behind the CD-ROM. And he said it was funny because his Army supervisor had said, it's obvious that you show your lack of understanding of the scientific process. You don't know what you're talking about. This technology is never going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so he went out into the private world and then basically invented the CD-ROM. So, yeah.
That sounds kind of like his great-grandfather's, or I imagine it's his great-grandfather's interactions with his first owner, who was the high sheriff of this county, and who considered himself, above everybody, and then he was sold to an owner that was a little bit more, quite a bit more compassionate.
So this is, it's not all. It's by no means is it a pretty story.
No.
It's a story that you can honor what this man did and what he did for this area and joining the fire department, but what he went through sounds horrific.
It was, and you just...
And not just in the South, but when he came to the North as well.
Yeah, well, you read these, I can't get too descriptive, but even as I read his obituary, the headlines refer to him as a good darky, and his account, his account was more descriptive, how he got freed, how this sheriff sold his, I use the word in my column, slaves, but that wasn't his word. So it's very compelling, very heart-wrenching, and somebody like that is right here.
Pretty amazing. And the fact that you guys are doing this tribute, I think that's awesome. And, and I hope it does continue. I hope it's something that lasts on an annual basis.
Yeah, I can see it because so many people, when I went to work yesterday, I had emails about it, people that were touched, and phone calls, and so I'm not expecting enormous turnout. But
especially today with the weather. All right, Chief Russ Brooks.
It's always great talking to you guys. Great seeing you.
Well, it's a great story. Glad to see you're doing this.
Thank you for raising a level of awareness on this issue too. It is a great story.